Okay.
They don't ignore it in that sense.
Uh-huh.
All right, you're taking it to the practical side of things. Let's speak politically correct. They never ignore anything.
Okay.
But they say you violated your own statute, and you've done this, you violated this statute because of your conduct.
Or you violated another statute because you weren't registered. There are ways that they can do that. They can cross-reference
Yeah.
these. It happens all the time. You guys are both massage therapists. I will tell you, the massage therapist grievances that we get are some of the nastiest, meanest grievances.
They
And that
are
director,
tough.
no tolerance. So if you happen to do something along these lines of what you're doing here within your massage therapy, they can grieve you to the massage therapy board. And the massage therapy board can turn you over to the naturopathic board or to whatever, the medical board, whatever they think. And you can still be grieved there, even if you don't fall under that board.
Lurking in the background of your profession is the medical board at all times. That's lurking in the background. And they will take jurisdiction whenever they can. This is we tried to get, in the last Sunset Sunrise, we tried to have the decisions of the administrative law judge to be binding on Dora. We lost. The boards insisted that they would have final control. It's a board of 7. I used to be on it. And now it's changed to 3 public members, of which used to be 4 public members. I was a public member. It's now changed to 3 public members and then 4 professional members. But you could find yourselves under multiple boards. Now, I don't want to upset you this morning, and we're not here to scare you this morning.
I am.
I usually get blamed for this, not Michelle.
It's always Bob, not me.
I always get blamed for this stuff. We're trying just to show you what's out there, so we want you to practice right. And that way, we can defend you. You know, that's the thing. We can defend you. That's the whole goal, is that you can have a good life despite the fact you're going to get hit with 3 grievances probably. That's the odds. Now, on malpractice, you're only going to get hit with malpractice if you really mess up. And that's messing up with children, as I've said a couple of times, or with an adult. If you trust your 6th sense. You're all very good at this. You're all highly intuitive. Trust that 6th sense when you're dealing with someone, because this is critical for you all. Really perceive that person. Maybe that person is not the right fit for you, and if they're not, refer them out, right? You know, I was watching the movie Sully the other night, and it said a delay is better than a disaster. That was a little fortune cookie thing he had, you know? And that's true, right? You don't want to spend your life with us. You don't want to spend your life in court. You want to have a good life and a really rewarding life. You're here to help people. This is something, you have a heart for this. So the problem is that there are several different personalities in the room. There's your personality that wants to help, wants to do what is good, wants to have a fulfilling career and look back on it and say, I really helped some people, you know, and it's rewarding. Then you have the regulatory bureaucrats. And the regulatory bureaucrats live in regulation world. And they live in a little box. And if you haven't done what fits in this box, they can react. I've had them say to me, when I've said, our therapist and our person did what was right. And they said, Mr. Lees, we don't have to determine whether what they did is right. We have to determine whether or not they committed a regulatory violation. Think about that, because Michelle's going to talk about HIPAA in a moment, and think about that. That's the way they are. If you're not in their little box, then the third personality in the room is us. Okay, we're the people that are used to confrontation. Confrontation doesn't scare us. That's a career path we've chosen, and it sure doesn't scare Michelle. And I was a district attorney, then with the Justice Department, all kinds of things. So I tried a lot of cases, and you know, sometimes our view in our office as we talk is maybe we need to kick Dora around a little bit. I hope there's no secret Dora agents in this room.
Now you know why I'm not a therapist anymore either. I want to fight.
You know, we don't have the gifts, we don't have the patience you all have. We don't have it, guys. Because our job is to protect you, to make sure you can go on doing what you're doing, and we get ticked off at the regulators, and we take them on when they need to be taken on. You're the people who say to us, Bob and Michelle, let's just, hey, can you get me out of this kind of thing? Can you calm this down? But sometimes they have to be kicked around. That's our job. So if anything happens to you that you don't like, or anything of the sort, and the good law firms do this, we don't charge you for calling us up. Call us up and come in and tell us what's going on. You're not going to get nickeled and dimed. Come in and tell us and say, hey, this is what I did, what do you guys think? And this is what's taking place, okay? So at any time, take advantage of that and then do that.
And just to clarify, we can only give you legal advice if you are a client of the firm.
Yeah.
For those of you viewing at home, none of this is binding legal advice on any situation. We are not anybody's attorneys specifically in this room, so we just want to make sure that's very clear.
Our disclaimer now that we have to make to the video that I should have made earlier is the fact that this is general advice. This is not specific legal advice for a specific legal problem. Okay, I've done my legal part, but the issue is with you guys. Get with a law firm. Get with somebody that you like, that you can identify with, who understands what you're doing, and you can trust. That's a relationship you want. And hopefully you'll never have to use it. Hopefully my odds are going to be wrong with you. But watch out for the regulators, because their little life's job, their mission in life is, and they say this is for the protection of the public good, but they're really, they've got their little box. And our job is to get them out of the box, because then they get lost. And enough of that. Okay. Does that help a little bit with a framework of what's behind? You come from a history, and your history is something that the medical board and the AMA and the state of Colorado don't understand. But you've got a great set of statutes, and you've got some great regulations which are really a lot clearer than they otherwise might be. So that's the good news. You've got some good stuff to rely on. But you do have some forces that are there that are pushing against you. So get that relationship with a good physician and a good pediatrician, and get that going as best you can. Colorado's on the verge of a lot of things. You are at the cutting edge forefront in your field. Your whole field, naturopathic medicine, is really at the cutting edge. There's a value to this, to your profession that is recognized by some but not by all. I know I'm preaching to the choir. I know you all know that. But there's value to what you do. But Colorado, regulatory-wise, if it weren't for these statutes and these regs, would not have caught up to it. They were forced to accept you. When I tried my cases in my day back then, the earliest cases, we didn't have any of this. We had what was called common law. We had case-by-case law. And the administrative law judges in Dora were trying to assess it. And the medical board was saying, we were saying yes, the doctor did what was right, the naturopathic doctor did what was right, and so on. And that, but this has been codified. Codified means it's written in the law, and now we have some basic guidelines, some firm guidelines. But you're on the cutting edge. Our mental health professionals are on the cutting edge when we deal with them. When it comes to the forensic nurse practitioner.
Psychiatric.
And the psychiatric nurse practitioner, thank you. Because the issue with the nurse practitioners is that they have enormous power under the Nurses Practices Act, but they have a national certification similar to you. Now you've come from the common law out there and some vague associations in the 80s to a national association and certification to where you are today with a certification and a statutory background. You've made a lot of progress. So that's where you stand today. And I hope that that gives you an overall horizon view. But remember, when you walk into that room at Dora, you've got different disciplines looking at you. And some have the attitude, hey, this is really good. And some have the attitude, this is something we have to put up with. Just be aware of that as that applies. What do you
There's
say?
a question in the back.
I was curious to know more about how the Ayurvedic practitioners fit into the naturopathic doctor's scheme of practice.
We view, all right, that's of course the history goes back to India, goes back to that where it was really first established. It has expanded from that. We view that as a I don't want to use the term subspecies, subdiscipline of the naturopathic doctor.
According to how it's
Is there a
defined in
step?
Colorado.
Can you give me the citation to the statute?
To which statute?
A naturopathic statute that says Ayurveda is part, like where should I read to find that out?
It
Because-
doesn't, Colorado does not specifically say that within the naturopathic regulation, but it does include the things that are done
Yes.
through Ayurvedic medicine. Does that help?
Sure, but it also says that if you're not a naturopath, but you're doing things that that overlap, as long as you're not saying you're a naturopathic doctor, you can go ahead and do them.
We're not saying you can't do that.
That's what we just said, is the idea of the fact that the statute does not specifically spell that out, but the practice is accepted. How is the practice accepted by the common law? Because it is a respected tradition, which in turn falls under the statute, but is not specifically defined.
So does the statute actually use the languaging traditional medicine?
No. This is where things are confusing here, okay? This is new. This is developing within Colorado. We cannot give you an exact, this is what's gonna happen, this isn't.
Sure.
There have been no cases on Ayurvedic medicine yet. We don't know. Any of you could be a test case for this.
Which we'd rather not have you.
Yes, please
Well,
don't.
that's
I
why-
think we don't plan for
Okay, let me, can I
Yeah.
finish this? So what we're saying is within the regulatory statute that defines and governs the naturopathic doctors, much of what people do, not everything, I don't pretend to know what each of you does within your practice because everybody does something different. A great deal of this does regulate naturopathic, and I'm using that as a very broad-based alternative medicine. It does refer to alternative medicine in here, and it comes through this. This is the problem with where you are right now. Because it does not come out and nothing specifically says it in this direction the way we want it to. You have your national organization, their code of ethics in your national organization is directly opposite to the statute here. It claims that you have confidentiality when working with people.
And
There is no
Are you-
statutory
What
confidentiality.
national organization are you referring to? Because we're not in the naturopathic.
NAMA,
NAMA.
NAMA,
Okay.
yes.
So if we could just take it down a notch.
That would be
Because,
better.
and for our newer practitioners and our students in the room, just a little background. What is happening here is what is happening even at the national level, and there was a lot of time
Yeah.
spent at NAMA this year on this very topic. With the recognition of the Ayurvedic doctor, the AD level of practitioner, it's why we're pushing up against these new statutes and these new regulatory oversight. And there's been a history in Ayurveda where Ayurvedic practitioners have felt that because they're practitioners and not doctors, that they will not come necessarily under any scrutiny. And so this is why it was so important for us as an organization to get clear, because now we have 3 scopes of practice. We have the Ayurvedic health coach or counselor, we have the Ayurvedic practitioner, and we have an Ayurvedic doctor level. And the only recognized school by NAMA in the nation is in Boulder, Colorado.
Right.
So now we have, here we all probably are,
Right.
except for the teachers who are also, right? So, let's hear what we need to hear.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Heather, that helped.
Because, really, thank you so much. We realize that this is confusing, because you have to realize that what is occurring in Boulder, Colorado, and what is occurring at the national level is not binding on the state of Colorado regulators.
That's why we are so important in this interface.
That's why, and this is probably, I just looked at my watch, it's about 10:20, and I've been lecturing you on the Colorado regs, and we have a lot to do, and we're not gonna get to all of it today. But the issue, so please have us back, because we would love to do that.
And we're gonna monitor this, just so you know, we're watching this,
We're
but
on this.
this is where we are right now.
But the issue is the fact you have to realize, as I said, you're on the cutting edge. You have to realize that a lot of what you're doing has to be tested. We would rather have you not be a test case, because that's onerous, that really, that takes you away from your life. But you've got to remember, a lot of what you're doing is really cutting edge, brand new stuff. I'm looking at some of these statutes, and we're talking about enactment dates of 2009. In our legal world, that's pretty new stuff. I mean, that's just, it hasn't been here for 30, 40, 50 years.
So if you could give us the high level, because we are all really, really intimately familiar with freedom, but I know that there was a sunset review of some of the ND.
Right,
This just 6 months ago.
right.
And we need to kind of know what is current.
Okay, let's get started on that to an extent. I'm gonna throw a monkey wrench in your sincere thoughts over here, because we're gonna talk about HIPAA briefly, a little bit about how HIPAA would apply. Because don't forget, you have another huge regulatory agency out there called HIPAA, and they justify their existence, and I've had dialogues with HIPAA. We talk to HIPAA every week, at least once, and we interact with them, and we try to kind of guide that. But HIPAA is another huge regulatory agency that is out there, and HIPAA does not know how, HIPAA knows how the medical regs apply to the medical profession. They are uncertain as to how the regs apply to the mental health profession. And they sure don't know where you all fit in. Okay? They really, because you guys are the vanguard. I predict in probably 40, 50 years I'll be long gone. But I predict
That's an
that,
amazing prediction,
but
Bob.
I predict that you will be at the forefront in a lot of ways in this country. Because people will recognize the value of what you're doing. But the political forces are so powerful right now that they really try to suppress it and regulate it, and they're regulating and governing things that they don't understand. So let's divulge for a little bit on HIPAA, or do you want me to keep going
No,
here?
I can discuss it. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on HIPAA. But I do wanna, the reason I'm talking about it, you all know what HIPAA is, right? You've all
No.
been to,
No.
so,
What does it stand for?
HIPAA?
Yeah.
Oh goodness, you're gonna make me do that. Health Information,
Patient Privacy Act.
no, it's not two Ps, it's two As, portability.
Portability.
I never remember it.
Sure.
It's basically about how you
Yeah.
protect protected health information. When you go to see a physician, it's like a traditional Western physician, you go in and you're gonna get something that's gonna say, notice of patient privacy policies.
I see.
Okay, and what it's gonna do is talk about how that specific doctor or a mental health professional can disclose information that he or she has gained about you within that relationship. The most important of which being your name itself, right? That's the biggest piece of protected health information. Yes, Harrison?
Seems to just open the door and say, we're gonna divulge everything to everybody.
It
right?
seems like it, but
You
it
read a
doesn't.
HIPAA form?
Yeah, I know. So let me kind of maybe help you on that a little bit. So with HIPAA, there are different standards. The first thing you're going to hear about HIPAA is that it applies to covered entities only. Okay? I'm guessing none of you take insurance for payment for what your clients provide. Perhaps the massage therapist may have some sort of medical-based massage, and you might in those situations. I know that Sujatha does. The problem is, it's not even a problem, HIPAA is what's considered the gold standard of confidentiality for any health-based profession, actually for anybody who's doing anything confidential. Our firm looks to be HIPAA compliant when we're discussing things with our clients. It applies directly to protected health information, okay? So, and specifically it applies to electronically transmitted protected health information. Traditionally, HIPAA has been referred to for covered entities, which are people who take insurance for their services. However, HIPAA went a little crazy a few years ago and created what's called the High-Tech Act. And it is the way that protected health information, the way you're electronically transmitting, it's the way it's governed. So if you are, do any of you do your services over the computer at all or over the phone?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so in that event, if you are having a conversation, if you are using something like Skype, something like FaceTime, you have that confidential information out there for anybody to see. So if somebody is coming to you and, I heard you talking earlier about depression and how certain things can help with depression, and if they're disclosing to you over that Skype and they're saying, I'm really depressed, I'm this, anybody can get access to that. Mm-hmm. So there are specific teletherapy options that are HIPAA compliant. And even if you don't have to be HIPAA compliant because you're not a quote covered entity, you need to use a service that keeps that level of confidentiality, okay? One of the best known is called VC, capital V, SEE. It's expensive at times, but if you're gonna do it that way, you wanna make sure you can protect it. We are of the belief that pretty much anybody in the health industry, whether it's mental health, alternative health, traditional health, whatever, is covered by HIPAA in some way, shape, or form. We have actually altered one of our HIPAA forms to say, if I were doing this, Michelle Stevens believes that she may be a covered entity. And if she is, then all of this stuff, all of these rights, all of these HIPAA things apply. If she's not, she's still gonna do everything she can to keep your stuff private, but these federal rights may not apply to you. Why is this important in what you're doing? Because how many of you are interacting with physicians when you do this? How many of you are interacting with mental health professionals? How many of you are interacting with anybody in which you're transmitting this stuff electronically? It puts you right under that potential HIPAA issue. HIPAA has not gotten this far yet. There's nothing in there that says alternative medicine, that says naturopathic medicine, that says Ayurveda, has nothing yet. Doesn't mean it's not coming, they're a little slow. We just want you to be aware that these are things that do apply to you, and the more you develop, Heather, you were talking earlier about castor oil, and you were talking about sesame oil, is that what the other one for the dental stuff? Those are all directly related to medical issues, to health issues. Those are all things, if you're gonna transmit something and say, this is what I advise, to somebody electronically, you guys need to be aware of these HIPAA requirements, okay? So I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying it applies directly to you right now. I'm saying it probably does. I can't guarantee it, but I also don't want you to be the test case.
This is the place we're in with HIPAA. HIPAA got teeth last summer. We were working out situations with HIPAA that if they believed there was a potential HIPAA compliance violation, they would work with the person, with the practitioner, and correct it. All of a sudden last summer, and maybe it's because the government's out of money, who knows, but all of a sudden last summer we started seeing fines of $10,000, $20,000, $35,000.
For violations.
I had a dialogue with a HIPAA director, one of the HIPAA directors, who said, Bob, we have 875 highly intelligent lawyers over here, and nobody knows, because I have a Justice Department background, they talk to me. And she said, no one knows how HIPAA applies in many cases to these professions. We don't know. Now where you are today is, we don't know if HIPAA applies to you or not. But if you're interacting with a medical professional, interacting with a mental health professional, I'll bet you they're going to get there within my lifetime. Okay? I bet they do fairly soon.
So it's in the best interest of an organization like COLORAMA to at least put it out there. Best practices are
I would.
to establish HIPAA compliant communication.
And it's not hard. The issue is the policies, the HIPAA policies, and the HIPAA disclosure. You have an excellent disclosure there already. And Heather, you were speaking about the new statute, and I can hit some high points on that. But to comply with the HIPAA regs, which are changing every 3 to 4 months, they change that often. It wouldn't hurt you to have a HIPAA policy and a HIPAA disclosure in your practices, because you don't know if it applies or not. But if they hit you, here it is. Your best defense is, well, we anticipated it, here it is.
And to let
Right
you
there.
know, in regard to the protected health information, a practitioner, I'm gonna very broadly call it a health practitioner, is not allowed to disclose information, confidential information, without a proper release. And in fact, what we call a HIPAA compliant release of information that spells out specific, our therapists have a very specific version, doctors have a different one. Anybody under the, an actual MD has a different version. The deal behind this is that paperwork, we had talked about briefly about paperwork, that's one of those things that can help protect you. It's one of those things that we want to make sure that whatever your I don't know, do you call them clients, patients, customers, what do you call them?
Clients.
Well, we, we need to ask you
Okay.
about this. This is my biggest thing. Like,
Uh-huh.
we have this terminology coming out about
Right.
Ayurvedic doctor.
Uh-huh.
So what can we call ourselves and what can we call our clients' patients?
Okay, so good
People that
question.
we see.
Nice.
So if you have, this is where things get a little confusing. Do I have anybody in this room with a PsyD, a PhD, an EDD, any kind of doctorate, besides a JD? I know you have a JD, so.
I'd say our teachers who see people in their clinics. who
Mita,
are
what do you
also-
have?
Yeah.
PhD,
You have a PhD, and what's your PhD in?
statistics.
Okay, so you're perfect. I love that you have a PhD in statistics.
A great example
Yes,
over here.
you cannot use the term doctor in relation to anything you're doing along the Ayurvedic medicine realm, because it is misleading to I'm gonna call them clients. That's gonna be your safest word. Honestly, patients is very medically related. Our psychologists call their clients patients. Our LPCs call them clients. It gets very confusing, so that's why I'm asking what you use. You can come up with a different term if you want. I mean,
People.
people,
People.
our people.
They're people.
I like it, our people. We'll go with that. Your people. So when you are representing your credentials, your skills, your registration, if you're an ND, you can say you're an ND, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right. If you have a PsyD, which is a doctorate in psychology, thank you, brain, told you, morning's not my thing. If you have a doctorate in psychology and you are blending your therapeutic practice with your Ayurvedic practice, you can probably get away with it, though we need to talk about how that works, because it's going to be some crossover things that could be problematic. You cannot call yourself an ND in this state if you are not registered, period. So if you are an ND and you are not registered with DORA, go do that. And then you have to refer to yourself as a naturopathic doctor. You cannot say naturopathic medical doctor. Can't use the term medical.
Let's just see what happens. If you register, and you must register to use the term naturopathic doctor, you have just submitted yourself to the jurisdiction of DORA
Correct.
by the very act of registration. That's what they're after. They're after jurisdiction over you. So that's what they've done. So you can use the term naturopathic doctor, you can use terms like that. You cannot use the term physician, you all know this. You're ahead of us here. You all know that,
But,
and so on.
Yes.
so the name of our organization is problematic.
Colorado Ayurvedic Medical Association.
Yeah, get rid of medical.
And the National Ayurvedic Medical Association.
Yeah. Now you got to remember, this is Colorado specific.
I know.
Now, look at what's going on, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We're talking to you about your regulatory compliance and your paperwork. It's gonna be very impressive to DORA
That you have it.
that you have it, because DORA is full of new people, right? We went through the history
As
of
long as
this.
you're checking boxes.
And as, well, they are checking boxes
They're happy with that.
because that's a safety net for them, right?
Mhm.
That's their safe place, how to check a box. And if they can't check it, they get lost. Dora has not issued a formal opinion in the last 5 to 7 years. We keep asking them for opinions. We finally got one on teletherapy for the therapist. But the issue is this, is that you can use these terms, and the advantage of 2 lawyers is you're gonna get 3 opinions. I think that you could.
Did you say I have a split personality? Is that what you just said?
You could,
Wicker's the third.
in my mind, I think the title of your organization is probably okay.
And I disagree.
She respectfully disagrees. So
Not even respectfully, I just disagree.
But I think it's probably okay because it's in my mind, in my worldview, and I control this little sphere right here and nothing much further. In my worldview, you have limited it and defined it by other things to what it really means. So I don't think you're in violation by that. Now, Michelle's concern comes down to your brand new statute,
Of the naturopathic
Let's
doctor.
see it.
Yes.
and then which we happen to have with us today, and then on that kind of thing. Let's hit a couple of high points, then we're going to go back to. Well, you have to do more on HIPAA, right?
No, I've done what I need to do on HIPAA. You need to know this about the way we work. I am far more risk averse than Bob is. I am always going to tell you the most extreme version of what you need to do to protect yourself. He's gonna bring it back more to another level. I don't want to see you put in the position ever where you're having to defend what you're doing. You guys, what you do is enough. Dealing with regulatory stuff sucks, right? It takes away from the things that you love. Yeah.
On the HIPAA website, is there a place where you can download the policies and so forth?
So I've got a reference for that, and I'll send that out to them.
We also have a form.
We have
Okay.
some forms, because part of the deal we struck with HIPAA is that, look, we're gonna work with you, HIPAA, and guide you through some of this in Colorado, but you're not gonna make our people sign a 164-page HIPAA
Oh my
policy.
God, no.
So we have it down to 8 or 9 pages. We have some pretty good HIPAA stuff, if you all want it. And it's really, really good. I think you ought to have the HIPAA stuff, because if you have it, it is impressive to Dora and impressive to HIPAA. They may find a little fault here and there, given the moment, because next year it may be slightly different, but you've got it. And you can say, this is what I've got. Oh, and the regulator may sit there because it's the way they think. They think like tax people, auditors think, for those of you who have had the pleasure of going through tax audits. They may think that, they may say, ooh, this little dot's not quite right, but you know, this is pretty good. That's where you want them to be.
Let me
okay?
clarify, the ones that you find online are going to be directly medically
Yes.
focused. There are some that are therapeutically focused. For what you do, it needs to be tweaked considerably.
Sure.
And
But
so that's just
at
something to
least
be aware
as
of.
an overview for
Absolutely.
our entire
Yes.
crew here, who's
Yep.
like being hit with holy crap HIPAA. There's some good.
That is the legal term for it. Holy crap, HIPAA.
Yeah.
Do you feel bad about having us today?
Aren't you